Sorry I was gone the last couple of days. I got really sick because of severe allergies that turned into bronchitis and I couldn't talk and whatever. So I'm better now and I wanted to get back on and talk with you guys. So I'm taking it easy on myself today and we're going to talk about fuel and how the body uses fuel. It's going to tie into a lot of things. Insulin resistance, it's going to tie into this whole calories in, calories out myth. We're going to talk about where your body's storing energy in actuality and how it uses it and how it releases it. And in this way, hopefully you can understand what's happening with our lifestyle today that's causing us all to be so sick. Um, so I think it's a really important topic. And, as I was getting ready this morning, doing my hair and stuff, I'm thinking about it. And I thought, I'm just really fortunate that I have this mind that's curious and wants to go do all this stuff. But not everybody wants to do that. I would feel intimidated in a room full of scientists, not so much now as I would have earlier, but yes, still. So how many people out there really want to sit down and do all of this research and listen to all these scientists and bring it back to you in a way that just makes sense? Not many people do. And I honor that because I was in the same boat. We all have our lens that we're looking at. And so I think it's important. I'm going to just try and break this down for you a little bit so we can understand how our body uses fuel, why it links to insulin resistance, why we're getting heavier and sicker and all of that, and what's happened to our food that's making us end up this way. Before I get started, welcome in everybody. I always forget that. I just go at it like a bull in a china shop. But I really do welcome you and I appreciate each and every one of you that drops in here with me every day. And I'm just so glad that you're invested in your health and just hearing this information. So, back on track. I don't know where I was going with that, but I lost track of my thoughts because my face actually hurt from all the inflammation from allergies the last few days. It hurt to talk. So let's dive in. By the way, I'm going to go over with how I'm getting better quicker than other people from this severe allergy that turned into a cold, that turned into bronchitis. I'm going to tell you what I finally woke up and said, you know what? You know better. We're going to do this. We'll talk about that too. All right. Fuel for the body. When we look at how the body gets its energy, that's important, right? I talk about insulin resistance delivering energy to the cells of the body all the time, but where's the energy coming from? When we look at the big pieces of our food, we have three what we call macronutrients: protein, fat, and carbohydrates. Protein, fats, and carbohydrates. Those are the three macros. So let's break down really quickly how they all act in the body. And please ask questions. If I miss something or it feels like I skipped a beat, just say it and I will try to remedy it for you guys. So just let me know. But it's pretty simple, but it's a lot of information that, hey, I didn't even know it. I thought I was pretty knowledgeable, but let's go into it. So protein, we're going to start there. Protein is primarily a building block, and we need a lot of protein. And I probably will do a talk later this week just on protein because it's interesting how protein gets synthesized and used and delivers nutrients to our body. But that's a whole different talk. If you guys are interested in that, put a 1 in. I'm going to go over protein at some point this week, I think, if everybody's interested in why protein is important and why we need more than we're getting in, all of that. But protein is a building block. So when we look at our energy levels, protein primarily gives us those building blocks and it gives us a little bit of energy. So we're going to set protein aside for the second. And the two main sources of energy for our body are fats and carbohydrates. So why is that important? Because they're either spiking your insulin or they're not spiking your insulin. Why does that matter? Because insulin is what's carrying that energy to the cells of the body and telling the body, how much and what energy to use predominantly. I mean, there's thyroid and stuff in there too, but we're going to look at insulin today. So what spikes insulin the highest is carbohydrates. And that probably still doesn't even give a good enough view of it. When we have insulin, that's a great thing. Type 1 diabetics are sick because they can't make it, and so they need it. It's absolutely something we need. It's absolutely something we should treasure. It's a wonderful hormone in our body. But, and here comes the big but, we've elicited too much insulin all the time. And that overwhelm of insulin has been termed insulin resistance. And we all know that when we overwhelm our body with things, I'm going to use a C word, and I'm not saying that this is going to cause it, but I'm just another thing. When we know that we've had too much of something, oftentimes our body has damaged cells and creates cancer. So we also know that anytime we have too much of anything in our body, it's going to cause something to go wrong. Same thing with insulin. If we're creating too much insulin in our body all the time, we start to get sick. Excuse me. And all of this up here is some of the things that can happen when we're insulin resistant. I'll go back into insulin resistance in a little bit if anybody needs to understand that better. But just know that too much insulin can make things go wrong in the body, and then you start to get sick. On other talks, I've linked how all of these things are linked into insulin resistance as the root cause, and I'll continue that work too. But fats now, with fats, they're not spiking your insulin. So you're getting fuel, but you're not getting the insulin spike. Carbohydrates do spike your insulin, and the simpler the carbohydrate, the more it spikes your insulin. So when we think about things like breads, pasta, rice, starchy vegetables, root vegetables, we are spiking our insulin more than we do when we're having complex carbohydrates like dark green leafy vegetables and some fruits. Yes, getting your insulin resistance under control actually helps with your hypertension. So I'm going to take a sidebar really quick because I feel like that's a super important question. And maybe that's one of the things I'll talk about this week. I've been considering it anyway. There are 5 specific ways, and I won't have space this morning to go over 5 specific ways that insulin resistance causes high blood pressure. An Apple user, what I want you to know is that my blood pressure, my personal blood pressure, ran the best we could get it to in my doctor's office in my chart was 150 over 110. If you have blood pressure problems, you know that's devastating. But the even more scary part was it would regularly, almost daily, go up to 180 over 150. How am I upright and walking? I don't know. And my doctors had the same question. One of my doctors, who was a personal friend, was terrified because she was cycling me through all of these medications and statin drugs to try and get my blood pressure down, and nothing was working. My blood pressure was getting worse. Oh, alarm. But fast forward 3 years after I started doing all of this stuff, my blood pressure is 110 over 70 every morning. The last annual physical I had, it was like 112 over 74. And all of my labs were in normal range. So just addressing this reversed my hypertension, and I'm off of all of those medications that I have been for almost 3 years. So yes, it absolutely helps with hypertension. The one other thing I'll say is 95% of hypertension is linked to insulin resistance. So instead of throwing medications at it that are just a band-aid, just trying to get something down, but causing other breaks in the system, if we support our system in doing what it's supposed to, that blood pressure will come down naturally, and there's no need for all those medications. So why don't we hear more about it? Well, think about the 2 industries that are the biggest in the world right now, probably, not probably, but food industry and big pharma. Both of them lose out if you learn this stuff. Okay, both of them lose out. So of course you don't hear about it as much, because if you knew that you could reverse your blood pressure by just addressing and adjusting how you eat, big pharma would lose a lot of money on those medications. That's what I'll say about that right now. But yes, long story short, yes, it can help your high blood pressure if your high blood pressure is lifestyle related, and 95% of us, our blood pressure is exactly that. Okay, so what got filtered? How about hypothyroidism? Yes. I just did some talks last week on hypothyroidism and how this whole uh, system between thyroid hormone and insulin hormone are bidirectional. So one being off causes the other. So if you have insulin resistance, it can cause thyroid problems. If you have thyroid problems, it can cause you to be more have more insulin resistance, which then just starts worsening the problem, right? I had hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's. My thyroid labs are all in normal range. I have a number of women who've had Hashimoto's, who have hypothyroidism, who report that they're doing much better and their symptoms are all much better managed and their labs are more normal now than ever by just doing the protocol I'm going to talk about and addressing the insulin resistance. So, um, yeah, metformin. Out of all of the medications, according to the scientists I listen to, metformin is probably the safest one. But look, they put me on metformin. It was the only one I would do. And I got violently ill. Like I was, sorry for the graphic content, but I was blowing chunks hours after I ate. And it was horrible. I felt sick. It was, I was already weak and tired and couldn't move. And now I'm having to clean up these messes from the metformin, and it really wasn't reversing my diabetes in the way that I needed it to. But this natural system and doing this that I'm talking about did. It did. Um, on a clean keto diet. So clean keto diets can work too. And let's get back to the fuel thing. I do want to say um, that I'm going to talk about Hashimoto's later, so we'll tie some more in about thyroid. But I've had some questions specifically about Hashimoto's because it's an autoimmune form of the hypothyroid or thyroid issues, and we're going to go over that in depth later this week. Um, and keto can work, but how about this? Let's talk about that. I was on a keto diet, had less than 50 grams most days, some days, and less than 30 grams of carbohydrates most days. I worked out 6 days a week, 3 hours a day, because I was a world champion powerlifting athlete. I still could hardly get under 200 pounds. I still was having joints failing. I was still having all of this other stuff go on. For some people, simply doing a keto diet can help them. For some people, it's not that simple. And that's why I go into all of these hormones and the fuel and all of that, because just because it worked for one person, it doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone in that same way. And we need to understand why it's broken and why we're looking at that in the first place. So for those people who've done keto and it's worked amazing for you, but I know there's people like me, and trust me, I had dietitians look at my diet. I had physicians look at my diet. I actually even went to, before I started the protocol, uh, sports. He was a bodybuilder trainer. So like he knew how to get people lean, right? He knew all of that stuff. And so he's like, look, Misha, like you're struggling. You don't need to be struggling. There's no problem here. Just trust me. Let me write your diet and exercise program for 3 months, and you're going to be shocked at how much your body changes. So I'm like, all right, dude. I mean, you have champion athletes under you. Great, let's do this. And so he wrote my program. I followed it strictly, and I checked in with him. And even though I was working out so much, and even though I was following what he prescribed as a diet, I wasn't losing weight. And I went back to him at the end of 3 months, and I'm like, okay. And I'm not going to name him. I'm just going to say, dude, I'm struggling. What do we need to tweak? And he looked at everything and he said, I have never seen anybody like you. I don't even know what to do to help you. And when you've had doctors and nutritionists and now this guy who trains people to get lean for a living, just all throw up their hands, give up and walk away, you feel pretty defeated. And I know I'm not the only one. Your insulin just raised to 85. You have PCOS. So I think here's what I want to say as we get back into the nutrition part. Keto, I love keto for most people. I love keto when you're transitioning out of this highly insulin resistant state, trying to train your body to get off of sugar as much. But I don't think that it has to be that way all the time. You know that 30 grams of carbohydrates is like a serving or two of spinach? Is that how you, I mean, I see people do it, but and then look, when we're looking at today's keto, everybody has this keto bread, this keto this keto that, and those products are pumped full of chemicals and they're still boxed and bagged and still not healthy for you. Yeah, whole food diet is probably the best. But the bottom line is keto works great for some people, carnivore works great for some people believe in veganism. I'm not going to go down that road, but let's take a look at energy. Yes, now your thyroid says Hashimoto, and doctor never discussed it, right? We're going to talk about thyroid later this week, so hang out with me. Where do I have it on my list? I actually made a list of when I'm going to talk about stuff, so we could. Thursday is when I plan to talk about Hashimoto's. Would love for you to join me tomorrow, but Thursday we're going to go in depth with Hashimoto's and insulin resistance. Okay, back to fuel. Protein we know is a building block. It's what builds our muscles. It's what gives the it's just a building block. I'm struggling for the words. Has a small amount of energy component to it. So because a small amount of protein converts to energy, we have a very small insulin spike. So again, we're going to set protein to the side for now. We're going to look at fats and carbohydrates. Those are the two main fuel sources in our food. Okay. The three main sources are protein, carbohydrates, and fats. But the two main fuel sources are fuel with fats. No, fill with fats and then limit carbs. So fats and carbs. Now, fats don't spike your insulin, but they give you a lot of fuel. And we're going to come back to fats in a minute. I do want to cover carbs. They spike your insulin the highest, and they keep your insulin spiked the longest, but they also provide the least satiety. So you can eat a lot of carbohydrates, get in some nutrients and get in some energy, but that energy is going to dip more quickly because it runs through your body quicker. And here's why. When we eat foods that have glucose in them, or the ability to be turned into glucose, it's spiking our insulin. The insulin, remember, is just taking that energy and delivering it to the cells of the body. So excess glucose means insulin comes out. Now, when insulin is out, it's not letting you break down fat for fuel. So it's also, in most of our bodies, we're so insulin resistant because we've had this diet that's high in fat and high in carbohydrates. Whew, we're going to get into that too. But we have this diet that's primarily high in carbohydrates and we're eating all the time. So we've trained our bodies to keep insulin at a high level. Our poor pancreas, which was what produces glucagon and insulin, is just churning all the time, it feels like, to deal with the load of carbohydrates we put in. Even when you're counting calories, if the primary sources of fuel in your body are carbohydrates, you're going to struggle with weight loss. You're also going to struggle with being hungry all the time. Sure, it tastes good, but it's not really fueling you in an efficient and reasonable manner. It's that sugar is going through you and insulin is making sure it gets delivered. And if you've listened to me before, part of what insulin is doing, it's not just delivering that energy packet to all the cells that need it. It gets to a point where some of the cells are like, I'll take it. Some of the cells are like, I don't want it. Some of the cells are like, I'll take a little extra. But in the end, we just have too much of the energy floating through our system. That's why people get stuck on the calories in, calories out. Now insulin says, well, I have to clear this out of the system because this person's going to put more in just a minute. So it starts storing it in the fat cells. Interesting thing with glucose, right? Our body breaks glucose down into these little packets or breaks it down, and the excess, it packages it together in these little packets called glycogen. And the main place where we store glycogen is in the liver. And if we have too much of those glycogen stores, you can see where we start having problems with the liver that lead to fatty liver disease and a number of other things. Again, it's another topic for another day. But one of the other places it can start is in your muscle. Now, why glycogen? Glycogen is an easier form of energy for your body to break down. So when your liver and your muscles are storing glycogen, think about when you got to get up and run because something scary happened, or you just really need that energy right now. those glycogen stores break down, give you that immediate energy. But the body only stores so much of that, and then it's going to start going into your fat cells, where it's a little more complex in how it breaks down and can come back off of the body. So beware, once you get those stores into your fat cells, it gets harder and harder to break that down and get it back out to the body. The last thing we want to do is start adding more fat stores to our body. And yet, that's the system we're stuck in right now. Okay. So what I want you to understand is if we follow these principles, and I feel like I skipped a whole bunch of information, but just understand that out of those three macros, protein, fats, and carbohydrates, the two that are fueling or giving your body energy are fats and carbohydrates. Now, fats, again, are not creating those glycogen stores, but fats are actually telling your body to burn fat. And why? Like, wouldn't you think that if we ate more fat, it would store more fat? No. When we have a diet that's high in fats and the carbohydrates are low, the body is now learning that it's going to use fat for fuel. Well, if you're eating fat for fuel and it's burning that, and the body goes, oh, hey, cool, we have a new energy source. We're not going to go to those glycogen stores. We're not going to store all that sugar. We're not going to use that for energy. We're going to use this fat and these fat cells. Now you start burning fat. Now your insulin comes down, glucagon goes up. Glucagon tells your body to burn fat for fuel, and everything starts to change. So no, eating fat doesn't make you fat. It actually tells you to start using fat as a fuel source. And that's really interesting, because how many of you guys have been told that if you eat excess fat, you're just going to get fat? And the excess fat is just too many calories. It's too calorie laden. And so you shouldn't eat it because that's going to make you fat. If you've heard any of that, put a 1 in the chat for me. Does fat, if you've heard fat makes you fat, then let me know, because there's a lot of information out there we all need to know. I found this cup last week and I absolutely love it. It says, do what makes you happy. I'm going to tell you do that too. By the way, doing this kind of stuff makes me happy. So thank you guys for filling up my happy cup. Okay, good. I know that there's a lot of people who've heard the same thing as me. But when we break it down, and I hope I'm not going too quickly, but if you understand that your body's either using fat for fuel or using sugar, or glucose for fuel, I hope we can start to kind of reason our way through why fat isn't making you fatter. Yeah, if you eat loads and loads and loads of fat, you're probably going to start storing fat, right? But it doesn't also come down to calories. It comes down to insulin. So I showed a picture last week of a dude who's like in his late 40s, ripped, better body than a lot of guys in their 20s. And what he does is these principles. And it changed his life. And he's extremely lean. He doesn't have a lot of fat on his body. He does some intermittent fasting. He prioritizes protein, fills with fats, and limits his carbs. Limiting your carbs doesn't mean, oh my God, that just threw me off. I got to come back to this. Protein is the enemy? Seriously. Protein is a building block for your body. Your muscles, your heart, your liver, your kidneys, your intestines, your stomach, your lungs are all built out of protein. So I think that's a little flawed. And when I look at metabolic scientists and they're saying protein is the major source that we need in our bodies because of the building blocks and the small amount of energy it can give us, I would challenge that statement highly. I mean, I can't even accept it. And yes, limit carbs. So those carbohydrates are what's spiking the insulin, and that insulin in excess is what's causing all of these problems, not protein, insulin. So, all right, back on track. So let's talk about these. It also matters how you put your food on your plate or take your food off of your plate. I'm going to say that. When I talk about these three principles, prioritize protein, fill or fuel with fats, and limit your carbs, that's exactly how your plate should look. When you sit down to a plate of food, if you want to reduce that glucose spike, even with, so And there's been studies, people have done studies where they have the same plate of food. And maybe they eat the starchy vegetables and stuff first on this day, and then they eat the protein and the fats later. Their glucose spike was higher. When they switched it up, same plate of food, same amount of food, and they had the protein first, and then the fats, and then the carbohydrates, their glucose spike was lower. That's important. Now, so much information, but when we're looking at fat for fuel, okay, again, it's telling your body to burn and use fat. So if you want to stay in a fat burning state, and I'm skipping so much, but I'm just frazzled right now because my brain is not functioning because of allergies. But when we wake up in the morning and we haven't eaten for 8 to 10 hours, our body's naturally headed into a fat burning state. And for some people who are very insulin sensitive, it already is in a fat burning state. So I advocate for a 16-8 fast. So in the morning, instead of waking up and having a bagel and oatmeal and all of that stuff, which are carbohydrates, which are going to elicit a need for insulin and spike your insulin and set you up to be high driving from insulin and sugar all day, and also set your body up to be like, oh, we're burning sugar for fuel today. Let's get more of that in because we need the energy, and my energy keeps dipping because insulin is delivering it too quickly. So if we start the morning with either a fast, continuing that fat burning, or adding fats in, we allow the insulin levels to um, start coming down. And there's a lot of science back and forth on the alkaline diet. That's not what I'm here to talk about, but I appreciate you. You can go do your own channel on alkaline diet. That's something I used to buy into, but not really anymore for a number of reasons. Your body balances itself within. And if you're giving it the right nutrition in the first place, you're getting that. And protein is not bad for you. Protein is actually one of the most healthy, especially animal proteins, and red meat proteins are some of the healthiest sources of food that we have available. And yet it's one of the least utilized that we do now. Creator protein is actually healthy, and it's actually creating a strong and solid body. Do some more information on what these building blocks are and come back and talk to me then, because you're obviously misinformed. Now, I'm going to let you stop taking me off track, by the way, because everybody else wants to hear the rest of this. So, yeah, deadly, right? It's not deadly. Actually, protein is one of the main. Look, if it was so deadly, how did we live as hunter-gatherers for so many years with a very limited amount of plant-sourced food and carbohydrates, and yet people were strong and healthy? We died more of natural causes, being like accidents, predators, whatnot, and died earlier because of those reasons than we were dying because of these metabolic disorders or lifestyle disorders. That's pretty new for us. Protein is extremely necessary, right? So if you understand that your whole body, all of these tissues in your body, or primarily not your fat tissues, but the rest of them are all built with protein. Now, I will say that when you start to eat too much protein, that then either starts putting a load on your kidneys to get that protein offloaded, or some of it gets stored as fat. So there is a balance. Like, too much of anything is not good. We just need to understand what this balance is supposed to be. We should be getting in protein first, and most of us need a gram of protein per pound of body fat, and that will help us stay full. Protein is the most satiating of all of the macronutrients. So when we're not getting in protein, we're hungry all the time because we're not getting the building blocks and the energy in a sustained form that we need. And the carbohydrates, plant stuff, runs through us so much quicker than it should that we're just constantly hungry. And that's a problem. But we're not getting the protein. And this is why I want to do protein on another day, because cows and animals who are herbivores can eat those plant proteins or those plant foods and convert it into something that's usable by us, and then carnivores, which human beings are carnivoristic, then use that protein that the animals have provided us through eating the foods that we can't break down with our own stomachs. It's a whole other topic. Back on track. Boy, it's a morning of getting pulled off track for me. Sorry, guys. So, all right, I thought this was going to be just so easy, but I just feel like there's so much trying to come out, as always, that it's just all coming out jumbled. But let's just focus on that. If you do that on your plate, prioritize protein and then fill up with fats, number one, you're already going to be full. You're going to have given your body energy that it can actually recognize and utilize and do well with. And there's going to be less room for those carbohydrates. Interesting thing, um, that when you have those proteins and fats. I keep reading comments and it's throwing me off. So what the hell? We'll just go with it. Do I believe probiotics and enzymes help? Yes, I take probiotics, but here's the thing. If you're taking probiotics and you're not giving your body prebiotics, you're dumping clean water in a dirty fish tank. Okay. You're dumping more in of what's already struggling to survive because you're not feeding it. Probiotics need to be fed. We're going to get to that part, and that part's called fiber in a minute. But yeah, I just did probiotics myself because my gut has been so unhealthy for so many years. I understand that 3 years of a natural protocol is not going to reverse 40 years of damage. It's greatly reduced and helped most things, but do I want to give my liver, my kidneys, all of my internal organs enough fighting chance to do good? Yes. So I take probiotics. But you know what I took just before I took probiotics? I drank a really amazing fiber supplement that I don't talk about here, but it's one that's available through my links too. And it has 27 different types of fiber. Every morning I get up, I have this small amount of fiber with some super greens, and then about 10 or 15 minutes later, I have probiotics. Why? Because when those fibers get in, they're the fuel that's going to feed the probiotics I put in my gut. If I'm putting probiotics in on top of sugar, now I'm just not giving those probiotics room to thrive. I'm trying to overwhelm something that's a negative, like the yeasts that I've been feeding drastically by just adding more in of what's already suffering. So, probiotics, yes, but make sure you're getting in prebiotics with your probiotics. It's a complete package. So that's what I do. And I actually add some collagen in that morning drink. So it's fiber, collagen, and super greens. And then I take a probiotic about 20 minutes later. And I do all that before I come live every morning. And then I start drinking my tea to help me with my satiety. Remember when I said when you have fats in your system, it's training your body to use fat for fuel. When you have carbohydrates in your system, it's training your body to burn sugar for fuel. When you're eating carbohydrates, you're telling your body to produce more insulin. Insulin, if you've listened to me talk before, and if you need to hear it because you haven't, then just understand insulin stops the breakdown of fat, stops you being able to burn or utilize the fat on your body because it says, hey, we're going to burn sugar for fuel. And the excess sugar, well, we're just going to store it as fat so you don't get to break that down because I really worked hard to do that. But if you can get the insulin down by limiting the carbohydrates, now glucagon is out telling your body to burn fat for fuel. Out of that comes these little things called ketones. And I'm going to admit I got it wrong. I was saying like, okay, ketones are messengers telling your body to burn fat for fuel. Well, so I didn't get it completely wrong. I got it a little bit wrong. The ketones are telling your body to burn fat for fuel, but what ketones are just a broken down form of your fat. But with those running through your system, your body goes, hey, let's burn fat for fuel. And so unless you're really overindulging in fat, your body in this state where insulin is down is going to burn more fat for fuel and get that long-term, harder to break down storage of energy utilized. And hopefully in lean people, what you're seeing is that their liver and their muscles are storing glycogen so that they have that immediate energy. Wow, that was a big circle. It made sense to me. I hope it made sense to somebody else. But understand that you have to have insulin down to burn fat for fuel. And we need to be able to do both. We don't want to just live off of fat because we're going to deplete ourselves. We don't want to just live off of carbohydrates because then we start to get heavy and sick. So we need a balance, right? That means limiting those packaged carbs and utilizing the above ground green, dark leafy vegetables for your carbohydrate source. And then if you, because this is life, we want to live life and not be struggling the whole time. So look, I understand. Like, I have stuff too. I let it get a little out of hand the last couple of months, and so I've really been reining myself in. And I noticed that the more I really lean into these, no bullshit, just lean into these, the more like my inflammation is going back down, my weight is going back down. A number of things are happening for me. And that's because I'm adapting my body again to burn fat for fuel. That's why I keep going. Like fats and carbs. So let's talk about that. Fats or carbs. Well, we know that protein spikes your insulin a little bit. Fats don't spike your insulin, we're going to say at all. And then carbohydrates spike it the most. But you know what does more than carbohydrates for spiking your insulin? There's a weird chemical reaction that happens when you have a high fat food with a high carbohydrate food. Now your insulin level is going to skyrocket. So we want to prioritize the protein, fill with the fats, give the body healthy fuel, and limit those carbs. What does that look like in a normal day for people? Like for me this morning, I just did a 36-hour fast. I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to go with it. I'll talk about the fast in a second. I did that to help. I do that anyway because I really enjoy a 36 and 12 fast. But I know that during that 36 hours, it's allowing my body to regenerate. So this chest that when I was fed all the time was full of phlegm my face hurt and my face was actually swollen and I couldn't talk a day ago and I was coughing all the time. 36 hours of fasting, adding this tea in that I'm drinking and the tea and water. I did have a seltzer water with some of this tea in it, by the way, amazing. That's all I've had for 36 hours. And that phlegm in my chest is breaking up. The infection in my nose is going away. The swelling in my face is going back down, all because of fasting. And fasting does a lot of good. But there's a lot. I should have made better notes to just keep myself on track, not to remind myself, but just keep on track. I want to come back to fats now. When I talked about ketones and fats and the fact that those ketones are telling your body to burn fat for fuel, people are like, okay, well, it's burning fat for fuel, but what else does it do? And so I was listening to Dr. Bickman, and here's a couple of things about ketones when you're in this fasted state like I'm in now, that's happening in your body. So it helps your brain, it helps you with mental clarity. No, unless you're extremely insulin resistant and not getting the ability to burn fat for fuel. If your body says, I need energy and the only way I can get it is sugar because that's what you've told it, your brain's going to start to feel sluggish because it's not getting energy in an insulin resistant state. When we're burning fat for fuel, those ketones actually help the brain function and actually help getting glycogen stores into the brain so the brain is actually getting energy. The brain needs both carbs and cholesterol to function properly. We need to understand that. So I'm not saying a no carbohydrate diet is where I'm at either. I believe we need a little bit of carbohydrates. We can derive some out of the protein, but we just need to slow our roll. If we were to be honest and look at our plates, almost everything we eat is carbohydrate and very little protein and very little fat because we've been told those are so bad for us and we're getting sicker. But ketones, we're in that fat burning state. High protein, high fat. Now you have ketones coming out. It also helps your heart pump blood. It helps regulate your heart to be in ketosis, to be in a little bit of intermittent fasted state. It helps you with your muscles having less oxidative stress. Those ketones are helping with that process in the body. It's actually helping the metabolic rate of your fat. And if you don't think that your fat has a metabolic rate, it does. And so uh, most of our fat being very insulin driven is really holding on to those fat stores. So it's not releasing them like it should, right? But the metabolic rate that's telling us how much energy to burn and where to burn changes when we now have those ketones present, saying, hey, you stores over here, we know that you're great energy and we need you. So come on out to play because sugar went away. So ketones are helping with your metabolic rate within your fat cells as well. And then when we look at inflammation, which we're going to talk about when we talk about Hashimoto's, because a lot of autoimmune doctors are saying all autoimmune disease starts with inflammation. Most of us have a ton of inflammation in our body, and that's driven by high levels of glucose and high levels of insulin. But when we start to allow those ketones to come out in our body, then those ketones start to reduce the amount of inflammation in the body. So, this little 36-hour fast. Yeah, I was hungry last night. Yeah, I was. Yeah, there was times when I was tempted to walk to the fridge and even if it was some nuts or some cheese, grab a bite to eat. But then in my head, I'm like, I understand why fasting is so good. I'm just going to wait until morning and see how I feel then and allow all of those changes and cellular turnover and this autophagy and the ketones in my body to do their job and start to make me feel healthier. Now, not last night, but the night before, I was coughing like a fiend. And I had so much nasal drainage and stuff. It was unreal. One day of fasting and getting into that state of ketosis, and it's all starting to heal. So I do use intermittent fasting as a healing tool for myself. Do I do a 36-hour fast every day? Hell no, I don't. No, I don't. Would I like to think that I did a 36-hour fast and then a 12-hour feeding window every day? Yeah, I would love it if I could live my life like that, but let's be real, I don't. Events come up, I'm gonna go enjoy the events and time with my family, and then I'm gonna pull myself back on track. That's what life is. Okay, another thing is with these ketones, the one thing that we're not talking about or we haven't talked about a lot is Alzheimer's. Most people have heard that Alzheimer's is being called type 3 diabetes because it still is derived from this insulin resistance piece. Too much sugar is causing a brain dampening and miswiring between neurons in the brain and all of this stuff going on. But ketones, in scientific studies, ketones have been proven to improve those symptoms of Alzheimer's and even start to reverse it. So, yeah, I'm 60 years old. Am I going to do some extended fasting? Absolutely, I am. I want my liver functioning properly. I want my brain functioning properly. I want my muscles functioning properly. So there's that. Fuel, fuel, fuel. Now, before I'm all done this morning, because we're getting close to time, but we've talked a lot about protein, fats, and carbohydrates. So, what happens if you have an imperfect life, or you have one of these lives where you can't take the whole tray of food that you're going to warm up? And by the way, I've seen some of those trays, and there are a lot of rice and some broccoli or whatever, and some protein. But say you're having a sandwich. So now you've got fats if you've got some cheese on it, and you've hopefully got some protein in there, but maybe you have some vegetables and you have that bread that's high in carbohydrates. Well, are you going to pull the sandwich apart and eat the protein and then eat the fat part and then eat? No, you're not. It's called a sandwich because that's like your meal on a go. Now, is it perfect? No. Can we manage it? Yes. And I'm going to tell you how. So even the glucose goddess says when you're eating a meal like that, for her, what she says is eat a whole plate of veggies before you have that sandwich. I don't know about you guys. That sounds great. Sounds amazing. Would love to do that. But, some of the jobs I've had, I didn't have room or space to have a whole plate or time, a whole plate of vegetables before I grabbed that sandwich on the go to try and get my lunch in for the day. So, why the vegetables beforehand? It's really not about the carbohydrates. The vegetables before the sandwich that she's talking about is fiber. What she's talking about is getting in fiber first to slow down the delivery of those carbohydrates into your system so you're not getting insulin spikes that are setting you up for this lifetime of insulin resistance or glucose dysregulation, is what they're starting to call it now. So, fiber first for me. Like my grandson was over, and yeah, like I want to feed him healthy too. And we do really well. We have some oranges and some raspberries and some blueberries in the fridge. And he has a lot of little cheese bite things that he can have for snacks because kids can snack. They're using that energy up. But as adults, not so much. But one of the favorite things he has at my house is a ham and cheese sandwich on a croissant. For me, I try to really load up the protein or add extra protein in, but we're not getting away from the fact that I have that croissant that I'm having that ham and cheese sandwich with. So I just have my fiber packet first. This little packet that I mix in water slows down that sugar delivery. It gels up in my stomach and allows me to feel fuller quicker. So something simple like a ham and cheese sandwich is going to make me feel fuller because the fiber in this, but the fiber in this is slowing down that insulin spike. This particular fiber has been proven to slow a glucose spike by 20% and an insulin spike by 13%. If I was having a real high carbohydrate meal, I could have two and it would increase those numbers dramatically. So, fiber first, and then for me, and whether I'm having a meal high in protein and fats and really no carbohydrates or not, I still put the fiber in first. Roll the tape back to somebody asking about probiotics. So for me, at this point in my journey, this fiber packet, 7 different soluble and insoluble fibers, phytosterols, plant substances, and vitamins and minerals is so much more than just glucose regulation. It's gut health. So now I do the one fiber in the morning, and then I do 2 of these throughout the day, whether I'm having a high protein meal or a high carbohydrate meal, because I want to feed the probiotics in my gut and reverse a lot of that damage that's been done by a high sugar environment in my gut for many, many, many years. So the protocol that I do that helped me with insulin resistance, lose 55 pounds, get my brain fog under control, stop my bleeding teeth and gums, reverse my PCOS symptoms, my Hashimoto symptoms, my joints failing, all of the stuff is just this. A tea that I have in the morning, you see me drink it every morning. It helps me feel satiated. It helps me with energy. There's a lot of studies. I will do a whole live just on the tea because it's so amazing. There needs to be a lot said about that, but that tea is doing a lot in our bodies and in a way that's helping us to feel full so we're not putting in that excess sugar. Combine that with this high protein and high fat diet, you're going to stay fuller longer and you're not going to have those breakthrough moments of snacking. Then when I do eat, I have this, which lowers the glucose level even more, or the glucose spike even more in my system, allowing the insulin levels to stay lower. What we need to understand with insulin is when sugar spikes insulin high, and we continually do that, insulin gets trained to stay high, and it takes a long time for the insulin to come down. When we can train the insulin to only be as much as we need to deliver the energy we just ate, it stays lower and comes down quicker. So if you're highly insulin resistant, it can take time for your body to learn to switch and start acting like this because you've just told it for years that you're going to eat every 15 minutes, every 2 hours, every whatever, and those foods are going to be highly derived from carbohydrates. The system I use helps reverse all of that. You can get it in my profile link, by the way, right? If you just tap on my profile and look at the red lights under my picture, there's a link there and I can show you all of that. But it really changed my health, including my hypertension. I don't have hypertension anymore. I don't have sleep apnea. I don't have a number of those things that I was suffering with. And all I did was this and start leaning into these principles of prioritize protein, fill with fats, and limit carbs. Again, my 6 simple steps are a little bit padded around those, right? Because we understand that we have a environment high in carbohydrates. And whether you're eating out, whether you're packing your own lunch, there's typically a lot of carbohydrates, especially if it's a grab and go lunch. We want to manage those. So I put in fiber first. So my 6 are fiber first, and then prioritize with protein, fill with fats, limit carbs. Always, 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 always limit carbs. And I'm not saying you have to be a puritist or you can't have sugar once in a while. I'm just saying don't do it all the time. Just don't do it all the time. I've actually switched so much that I don't know, because I was sick. I was wanting some comfort food. So I bought some Carb Smart ice cream, right? still high fat, but um, lower in carbs. And I went to have a bowl of ice cream and it just didn't even taste the same. I'm like, I'm training my body so much to not need those sources that they're not as satisfying. And what I find myself craving more are savory foods, protein foods. So now I keep a lot of protein stuff around. If I do feel like I'm in a situation where I'm super hungry and it's time to eat and I don't have time for anything else, I'll either have protein like chicken or beef already made up that I can just warm up and eat, or I'll make a protein shake that I have created that is high fat, high protein, and low carbohydrate, because we want to stay away from fats and carbohydrates in high combination together. That's going to make you more insulin resistant. Remove the carbohydrates from that picture, and the fats aren't doing so much damage. Very different story, I think, than what you hear from most people online about, oh, you can't have those fats because they're going to push you over the carbohydrate load or the energy load of calories. So calories are just an energy measure, and it just determines, it just is telling how much energy you're getting in. So there's an energy in, energy out uh, portion. I get that. But what we also need to know is that hormones play a huge role in this, in telling us how and where that energy is going. So if we're eating a high diet high in sugars, we're relying on insulin more to deliver the energy and to tell it where to go, then our body is capable of dealing with. And now we're packing on fat and the cells are getting resistant and we're sick. Very, very simplistic view, but I hope that you guys, all the person who was here earlier, I get it. I've been there too, right? And who knows, in 20 years from now, there may be new science and I may be saying something different. But what I know right now with the science that's out and updating right now is that, and when we look at history, protein is hugely important. So I'm going to stick with the 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight if you want to be healthy. That protein is building blocks. It's giving you energy. It's doing so much in your body, so much more than just fats or carbohydrates alone could do. But be aware, protein needs to be paired with fats. The membranes around your cells are built up of fat. When you're eating a high protein, low fat diet, you're giving your muscle tissue or your tissue more energy. So it's growing, but the membrane around it is becoming very thin and brittle and weak. We need fats for a number of reasons. Your brain needs fats, your brain needs glucose. But our brain also needs, or our body needs to be able to switch between glucose and fat. So I'm not here to tell you you have to go carnivore or you have to go vegan or you have to cut out all the sugar all the time. That's not a real life for most people. And so what I want is to show you guys a way that we can start to have health by paying attention a little bit to what we eat, switching up just a little bit, and still having a real life where we have birthday cake and we have ice cream once in a while and all the other things. I used to love donuts, by the way, and my grandson said, I can't control everyone, right? My grandson called the other day and he said, hey, Nana, Mama bought us donuts for breakfast. And I'm like, no. But I can only make suggestions. I don't control anyone's life. Donuts for breakfast are absolutely, in my book, lethal. Whether you're young or old, yeah, that right there is a dessert, and it's a highly sugar-laden dessert that should be reserved for a dessert. A dessert. It's not a breakfast food. Grains and starches are not a breakfast food. Where you want to start your day is filling up with protein and then fats, and then it's going to keep your insulin level low. Now, I said a 16-8 fast, right? Here's the thing, you guys, for a lot of the fasting that I talk about doing, you can have some fat and technically not break your fast or really do too much damage to your autophagy, actually spurn your autophagy because you're spurning more ketones, and that is to have fat for breakfast. Think about avocados, think about some other fatty things where you just have primarily fat for breakfast and no carbs. You can get some fuel in, energy in that way, continue to teach your body to burn fat for fuel and keep your insulin levels low. Then at lunchtime, You have a high protein, high fat diet, which is again going to help you feel satiated. By the way, the fats from breakfast help you stay satiated way more than those donuts or carbohydrates would. Now at lunch, you have that protein and fat. Now you're getting the building blocks you need. Your fat is there. Your insulin is only going up a minute amount. So you're getting back into that fat burning state quicker. And then if you want to have carbohydrates, you can have it like most people do it at dinner time because that's when their families are about and their kids are around and they're going to have the pasta and whatnot. And then that's when I especially utilize this before that carbohydrate meal. Today, if I decide to eat today's supposed to be a 12-hour eating window day for me. And I'm doing something very different than what I recommend for most people. Bacon and eggs for breakfast are good. The one caveat I would say, Dana, is try to stay away from nitrates and overly cured stuff. If you can get uncured and no nitrate bacon, amazing. Eggs are a perfect food, perfect balance of protein and carbo and fats. So if you take the yolk out of the egg, stop doing that. Eat the whole egg. It's a perfect balance. It was created that way for a reason. So I switched to no nitrate bacon and ham, an uncured ham, because those nitrates can be inflammatory, and that inflammation can start to spawn more insulin resistance. But bacon and eggs, or like steak and eggs, um, sometimes I'll do chicken and eggs. I don't lean on turkey very much because it doesn't have a lot of fat in it. If you want to have turkey, add some extra fat to that. You boil your bacon before you fry it. That's a good tip. I didn't know that. I'm going to look that up. So she says she boils her bacon before she fries it, and that removes the nitrates. So yeah, bacon and eggs without the toast, um, is an amazing breakfast. High protein, high fats. Your body's going to feel full. When you have a bacon and egg breakfast, skip the bread. Do you feel like you're fuller longer? Do you feel like you have less breakthrough hunger? Because that's what should be happening for you, as opposed to if you had a pancake breakfast. And no lie, I had blueberry pancakes and I put some fresh strawberries on it and some organic raspberry syrup this weekend. Of course, I have a real life. I have that stuff once in a while. Again, grandson can have it. He has a higher energy load than me, but I don't do it all the time. But with that, I just tried to make sure I was getting in extra protein. Sometimes I put protein in the pancakes, just to make sure I'm getting in, that 30 to 50 grams of protein a meal. Now, back to how I'm going to eat today, if I choose to eat. What I would probably start with today, if I go out there and decide, okay, I'm not going to fast for another day, I will most likely today start with a high protein shake that has 40 to 50 grams of protein, a good amount of fat, and very low carbohydrates. Amazing. How many of you guys have had a protein shake and a half an hour later you feel so hungry? Put a 1 in the chat if you've ever done those protein shakes and you're like, oh my God, I'm so hungry right after. I learned this when I was powerlifting. Like I thought I was bringing fuel for the day and I had protein shakes and stuff. And one trainer was like, what are you doing? That's not enough to fill you up. That's not enough to fuel you through this day. And a powerlifting event is, oh my gosh, I have some of the days that I was the most tired is after a powerlifting event. Hours and hours of wait and then go exert yourself at the maximum load you can exert. At the end of the day, you're exhausted. Like if you don't just want to go home, sit in a hot bath and have a cozy drink, I don't know what's going on with you. But okay. Refried beans and eggs, vegetarian. Yeah, you could do that. You could do that. Um, so I can't even remember what I asked you to put in one for now. This is how my brain goes on allergies. But yeah, I gotta really try and backtrack to where I was. It's probably about time for me to be done because I can feel this creeping up and my fever is getting up again. So I might fast again. Oh, I was talking about diets. Um, So I'll have that protein, the protein shake. That's where we were. Woo, I got it back. So you're getting hungry again because there's just not enough substance and the protein shake goes through you too quickly. By adding some fats to the protein shake and making sure that it's a low carb protein shake, it will stick to your literally stick to your bones better. I don't know how many of you guys have watched Steph Cope, 11111. She's a nurse. She's one of my besties, and she also does the system with me. Um, about a month ago, we were traveling together, and I'm can be frugal sometimes. I'm just like, I'm not up for going out and eating. I'm also autistic. So like all day long in an office with bustling and screaming and not screaming, but loud noise. I just wanted to go home at the end of the day. I didn't want to go sit in another clankety clank restaurant. But one of the meals I brought all the stuff to make some of my protein shakes. I even packed my Ninja blender and took it with us. And the first day I made one of those shakes, she was kind of like, "Ooh, this is what we're going to have for breakfast." And she drank it and she was like, "Oh my God, this is good." And a couple hours later, she was like, "Oh my God, I'm still full. What did you do?" And really, you guys, it was just a good quality protein with about 40 to 50 grams per serving in it, a good amount of healthy fats. Sometimes it's whole cream, sometimes it's cream cheese, sometimes it's avocado. Yes, I put avocado and spinach in my protein shakes once in a while, probably a third of the time. But that really made it stick to the bones. The lower carbohydrate, higher fat and protein really makes it kind of stick to your bones so that you're not hungry as quick. So if you're drinking protein shakes and feeling like, "Ew, this just isn't sticking with me," either add some fats to it. MCT oils, you can do coconut milk, whatever, the other things I mentioned. Try that and see how that works for you. Now, my second meal today, because I'm going to be focused on getting in protein, because although if I eat, or if I eat tomorrow, I'll be doing the same thing. I will eat 3 meals today because I had an extended fast. But my second meal will probably be, I think I have a salad left in there that my daughter-in-law made, amazing dark green salad, a little bit of pear, some cucumbers, whatever. I'll probably grill up some chicken and put on top of that for one of my meals. And for my second meal, I'm going to focus on either salmon or red meat. Again, I want as much protein as possible. If I want to have carbohydrates, I will try to push it towards the last of the day. I may have it midday. I try not to, I eat my last meal about 6 p.m. I'm usually up until 10 or 12. You want to give yourself about 4 hours after you eat before you go to bed. And there's been a lot of controversy back and forth about that. But the truth is, you're still digesting. So you're trying to rest and your body's trying to work. Not a good combination. So the sooner you can quit eating before you go to bed, the better. I'm trying to get it to where I stop eating like at 4 in the afternoon. That's going to be a transition. 9, and I missed some questions. So now I got to go back because somebody's talking about Cajun land. You got I used to eat Cajun, like there was a guy from Cajun territory who moved up to Wyoming and opened up a restaurant, and I used to love to go in there for his blackened chicken. And back in the day, I could handle it, but whew, I don't know if I could eat that now. But it's amazing, amazing. I used to make my own Cajun spices and do blackened chicken all the time. I know it's not the basis of Cajun food, but that's the one that hits me. Okay. Oh, so Dana, what I actually do is I use Unicity's complete protein. It has about 20 grams per serving, about 10 grams per scoop. So I do double up on it. I have not run into a protein with that much protein in it either. So I just double up on that protein, and then I add in those fats, about a quarter cup of either coconut milk, whole whipping cream, avocado, something like that into that shake. If you want something creamier and smoother and more delectable, you can put cream cheese in it. I've done like an orange shake with that. Amazing creamsicle type shake. But I have a number of different ones I do. But I use our Unicity brand because it's clean, because it's low in carbohydrates, and because it has a good vitamin and mineral profile to it. I'm always about getting in as complete a nutrition as I can if I'm paying attention to nutrition. There's days where I don't care about nutrition. I've been emotionally triggered and I just want food that tastes good. Not that this food doesn't, but we all have those childhood memory foods. I fall into that just like everybody else. But the rest of the time, I try to focus on really clean, healthy foods. That's why I do the things I do. I try not to do too much because I don't want everybody to think this has to be difficult. But I'm going to say it one more time. I'm 60. I abused my body for over 40 years. I finally woke up and realized, oh, yeah, it is going to happen to me. And so now I want to fix all of that. So I'm doing a little extra steps than most people might have to. Um, Yeah, it's a vanilla. We have a vanilla and it's still on sale for $59 instead of like $89. Really, and it's really smooth. It's not grainy, it's not chalky, it's not chunky. It's one of the smoothest, honestly, the smoothest proteins I've ever gotten. I was pretty picky when I was competing about the proteins I used because I had to make sure they didn't have, and some protein powders slip in extra stuff, especially if you're listening to like sorry, but Gaspari Nutrition and some of those guys who are saying like it does all this amazing. Yep. All these other amazing effects. Well, they're adding extra components to it. And I unfortunately have been I've had to drug test people. I was a leader in the organization for a while. And it's sad to see how many people actually got warnings or banned because they had a banned substance in their urine and they didn't even know it. It really came from some of these supplements like the protein. So if it has a proprietary formula, that's not telling you what's in it, be careful, especially if you're an athlete or somebody who gets drug tested. So I love Unicity's protein because I know it's pure. I know it's safe for sport, which is I'm not in sport anymore, but that's been ingrained in me. And it's not chalky and it's not chunky and it's really smooth. That's the one I use. Um, okay, the keto Cajun. I'm gonna have to look that up. I'm always looking for good recipes. I have recipes that I love and go to. I'm used to love to do like really complex cooking and I used to like to do like the French cooking where all these components were there. But now I really enjoy things that are just tasty and simple. The simpler, the better for me. So I'll check them out. I would love to see that. Okay, you guys, I'm going to run because just the truth be told, I'm getting tired. I will be back tomorrow. And what was I going to talk about tomorrow? We're going to talk about, we are going to continue the conversation on protein because especially when somebody comes in and says protein is the devil or protein is devastating, there's just not science, actual science that's been clinically studied and peer reviewed that says that protein is deadly for you. In fact, it's actually the opposite. Be careful. I know I fell into this a lot of times too. I would listen to people who are talking about all this inflammatory stuff and inflammatory being polarizing. And I would buy into it, like the alkaline stuff and the this and the that. And I was running down every path trying to find my health until I said, stop, wait a minute, stop just listening to people and start paying attention to what science is telling you. And then I started getting better. Excuse me. Hey, Tammy. Okay. So protein tomorrow, we'll break down protein a little bit. I do want to dispel a couple of myths. This has bothered me for the last 4 days since I went live because there was somebody on who was talking about, and I want to drop a little knowledge, but the T and the balance. You guys, we have had so many changes happening right now. I want to update you guys. So the T, this lemon, not the lemon ginger, but the lemon comes in what we call natural now. It is flavored with stevia or sweetened with stevia, no sucralose, no erythritol, so just stevia in this. And then we still have some stock of the old though. So if you're fine, and I'm fine with getting the old, so I just order it. But if you really want, if you feel like that sucralose or that it was negative for you and you really want the natural, just let me know and I can help you get a hold of the system that's all stevia based. So the balance is transitioning to a stevia based sweetener now. the lemon Unimate, and I assume the other flavors will be transitioning as well. But right now we have the lemon and the balance available in the what they call natural, and that means stevia, no sucralose. So when I was talking about it Thursday, somebody said, "Oh, stevia is a kidney killer," and I was shocked. Like, I've never heard that. That's just crazy to me. So, if you know me, you know that when that live was over, I start typing in all the stuff and I start looking for papers that are going to tell me that stevia is what she said was stevia is a kidney killer. I actually put that into the Google chat. I put it into chat GPT. I put it into Perplexity. I put it into all these people who can go out or all these AI that can go out and find all the articles. And when I put in that stevia is a kidney killer, you know what came back every single time was that stevia is one of the best sweeteners to heal your kidneys. Sugar is the worst thing for your kidneys. Stevia is actually helping. They've had scientific studies that show that it's helping people's kidneys heal because we're reducing the insulin resistance is a big part of it. So there's that one. The sucralose and erythritol, we're dealing with that right now. But either way, those, I have tons of studies that explain that they're not damaging like you hear in these inflammatory or polarizing comments that are said. So if you want to get a hold of the natural, let me know. We'll be transitioning the lemon and the balance all over to natural over the next few months. It will all only be available in the natural. We also have apple spice available in the Unimate now. And I haven't got to try it, but people who have said they love it. The last change that's going to be coming about, I want to deal with because I can't stop myself apparently, is that right now, those of you who've been on the system and love the system see it this way. A tea in the morning and a pre-meal drink before you eat anything, right? And that's how I'm going to continue to live my life. But what we found is that a number of people are like, I'm going to do OMAD. And so we're going by science, but we're also fulfilling the needs you guys have. Now, I would caution about cutting back on the fiber for all the prebiotic and the probiotic and the gut health reasons. But if you're doing the high protein and high fat for your first meal, you really can get away with not having the fiber. But if the meals that you're having those higher carbohydrates, you really need to have the fiber. So what we found is that people, again, I want to preface this, OMAD has been being proven to be the least effective of the intermittent fasting. Probably because you're just not getting in the nutrition in one meal a day that you should be getting in. And even as we get older, like my mama is 20 something years older than me. Oh my Lord. That means mama is, holy crud. She's well into her 80s. I haven't counted her age for a while. But she does OMAD just because she doesn't have a lot of energy. She doesn't, their money's a little tighter. So they just eat one meal a day. And that's probably for her as she's winding down physically, mentally. But for most of us, it's not enough. So what's happened is people think, okay, if I'm doing intermittent fasting, it's got to be about calorie counting. And no, it's not. Intermittent fasting is not about calorie counting, about calorie restriction. It's about allowing your body to be metabolically flexible. So a lot of people have said, well, if 16 and 8 is good, then a 24-hour fast with a meal at the end of it is even better. So I'm going to do OMAD. So that's fine. And if that's what people choose to do, that's what we're going to help you with. So now, eventually in the next month or two, the system will be changing to 60 of the tea and 30 of the balance so that people can have their tea in the morning. And if they want to have a lunch that's high in protein and high in fat, they can just have another tea to help them with energy and satiety throughout the day. And then if they're having that meal at the end of the day that they're enjoying with family and it has maybe some pasta in it, like we had chicken parmesan with some fettuccine noodles. I really didn't eat my noodles, but we'd have this then. So the system is going to transition into that, but you will still be able to buy extra balance alone if you are like me and want to continue to get in the high fiber. Just some changes that are coming, and I want everybody to be well aware of what's coming so that you can understand the whys and whats. And I will be going over the Unimate on Friday, because there's a big reason why we're going from 2 fiber and 1 Unimate to 2 Unimate and 1 fiber, as we've been doing studies over the last several years. As we put this out as a system, not only have we noticed that people prefer doing OMAD, most people, but we've noticed that the metabolic implications of the tea are tremendous. And that's important. This tea was developed as a mental health tool, so better mental energy, better mental clarity, better moods, but it's also helping with satiety and those ketones that we were talking about earlier. So I'll talk about this on Friday. You have a lot of allergies. Do they contain gluten or avocado? No. They're gluten-free. They're halal. There's no animal products in them. They're completely plant-based. And I haven't updated the new nutritional panels on my website. And there's a problem with the link in my website, so I need to fix that. But I will get that fixed this week, and then you'll be able to see that. But no. And there's no citrus in it either, except for in the balance, there's a small amount of citrus to give it the orange flavor it has. But there's nothing in this that impedes or interferes with medications. The one citrus that interferes with most medications is going to be grapefruit. None of that in here. On for my lives, Dana, I'm usually on at 8:30 or around there. I've been a little bit late getting on. I'm going to try and get it right back to 8:30 here in this next week. Around 8:30 in the morning, Monday through Friday, that's when I'm live. If I have time on the weekends and I feel up to it, I might go live randomly. Tonight also, just message me. You guys, if any of you, I know you hear me talk every day. You don't have to have the knowledge I have. I have people who are on my team that I collaborate with who just simply tell people stories, and they're doing amazing with the business side of it. I'm going to be holding a meeting tonight, a private meeting, to explain the business. If you have any interest in increasing your income or changing your life in that way, like I did, just message me and I'll get you the link to that. And let's get you guys not only feeling good in your health, but in your wealth too. I think that's important. I don't talk about it enough, but really, because I changed my lifestyle all the way around, I've been able to afford things that I thought this little North Idaho girl was never going to have. And so I want that for other people too. Anyway, if you're interested in the meeting tonight, it will be at 8 p.m. Eastern time, but it will be on a private Zoom link. Join me, ask for the link. I'll be happy to send it to you. So Jeep Girl, let's just message me here and I'll get you that link, and hop in with us and listen to what we have to say about the business and how it's changing lives too. As we've had people who were homeless, who didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, much less 2 pennies to rub together, who have now changed their lives and the trajectory of their families' lives, just by sharing what I share with people and allowing them to start feeling better. And when 95% of us are sick, or 93% of us are sick, that's huge and broad sweeping for the impact in our world today. So Dana, you guys, just right here on TikTok, look, if you go to my profile, let's show you this. You can either message me here on TikTok and I will find it and message you back before the meeting tonight, sometime this morning, or we can actually not do this. I'm going to share it over here too. So you guys that are on Facebook and YouTube, I will put the link in there for you guys as well. But on TikTok, if you just go to my profile link, if you tap on my picture up above, a white box will come up, and then that's going to bring up my profile. So what you want to do there then is this. You want to tap on that link right below the red lights. See the red lights here? This link, if you tap on that link, that will get you to my page. And be warned, I just got told that my website wasn't working and I checked it and there's a link broken, so I'll fix that. But there is a contact me spot right here. You guys see that? If you want to contact me directly and not message through TikTok, you can just contact me on WhatsApp, ask questions. I'll get you the link if you need it. Just say, biz in your message, and I will get you the link, and we can talk tonight. It takes about a half an hour for me to go over the basis of the business, and then you can decide if you're interested in doing that or not. Okay. Yeah, it is only on Zoom right now. Boy, I trying to think if let me do some work today, Jeep Girl. I know that not everybody has Zoom, but I just install Zoom. I'll try and find a way to do these meetings and have it so you don't have to join Zoom, but I just haven't had the brain space for that right now. I know it's simpler than it seems, but right now everything is hard for me. Cool. With that, I'm going to go lay my fevering butt down and drink some more water. And I will hopefully hear from you guys, get you the link, and we'll see you tonight. Otherwise, I'll see you at 8:30 in the morning. All right. Have a good day, guys. And over here, you guys, I'm going to get you that link right now. And then if you want to join me tonight, I would absolutely love to have you there. Completely open to questions and information about what I do, not just for my health, but for my income. So just message me there, or message me here on Facebook, and I'll get you that link. And otherwise, I will see you guys in the morning, and we're going to talk about protein and how important it is for your body and what's happening in your body with protein. Have a great day, guys. Thanks for joining me. Really appreciate it. I really appreciate each of you who have shown up and spent time with me. Have a good day.